The night we threaded lifelines through a war zone, I had no idea a different knife was being slid between my ribs back home. The map glowed on my command laptop, every icon a moving heartbeat I had to keep alive. Convoy Alpha was pushing through the main highway, Bravo rerouting through a forest road that hadn't seen friendly boots in months. Fuel, freeze-dried meals, plasma, antibiotics. Every unit I dispatched meant another platoon lived to see sunrise. Out here the enemy wasn't just armed men. It was weather, terrain, and the ugly math of supply lines stretched too thin. The radio hissed with Kobe's voice, clipped and steady. Bridge down on Route Delta. Possible IED placement on the detour. What's your call, Colonel? Send the lead truck through the Orchard bypass, I said. Split into 2 staggered runs. One for the med crates, one for the fuel. No heroics. We keep moving. Every order carried weight. In my head, I kept a running tally. Oxygen tanks, ammo crates, each convoy's average speed. This wasn't a glamorous war story, it was chess on a burning board. And when you're responsible for the pawns, you learn to think 6 moves ahead or you lose more than a game. By the time the first supplies received, casualties stabilized, pinged on the net, my team was too wrung out to cheer. We just nodded at one another as if saying still breathing. That's enough. I just poured my first coffee in hours when my personal comm buzzed. A civilian line, one I never gave out unless it was family. The name Ariana lit the screen. My little sister doesn't spill capital letters unless it's real. I answered with, "You okay?" Her voice was too calm. "Adrian, I've been seeing Everley going into Captain Mercer's apartment. At night. More than once." The room seemed to tilt. "You're sure?" I watched her use his spare key. She hesitated, then pushed the knife in. "She's the reason Chris and I broke up years ago. I didn't tell you because you were happy. Or I thought you were." Kobe's voice crackled in my other ear, oblivious. "Convoy secure. No losses." His words landed like a hollow victory. I stared at the glowing map, the moving icons. Men on those trucks had trusted me with their lives and I delivered. Meanwhile, my own flank at home had been wide open, undefended. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't rise. I said, "Thank you for telling me, Ari," and ended the call. War loves symmetry, front lines and home front, bullets and gossip. Either way, if you miscount your ammo, you die. And I had just realized I'd been fighting a 2-front war without even knowing it. The next day, I didn't jump straight into confrontation. That's not how you survive, out here or back home. When you discover a breach, you don't scream at the wall. You study where the cracks run, find how far they've spread, and figure out the exact pressure to make it collapse. I was in my quarters, the air thick with stale coffee and last night's dust, when Kobe stepped in. He didn't knock, he never has. He just dropped into the chair across from me, arms resting on his knees, eyes studying my face like he was reading coordinates. "You want to talk about the convoy," he said, "or the other thing?" "The other thing," I answered. He waited. I told him about Ariana, about the key, about the years-old affair that had been the first ripple in what I thought was a calm sea. He didn't interrupt, didn't shake his head in disbelief. Kobe Voss doesn't waste reactions, he stores them for when they matter. When I was done, he leaned back. "You want comfort or you want a plan?" "I'm a logistics officer," I said. "Plans are my comfort." That's when the shift happened. His posture changed, his voice dropped. "Then here's the first move, we don't confront. We observe. We collect. We make them think the wall's solid until the day we pull it down." We started with Mercer's duty logs. Nothing flashy, just combing through his sign-outs, his time stamps, the small discrepancies only someone who's moved convoys in the dark would notice. Kobe cross-checked them against security footage. That's when we found it. Mercer in the motor pool late at night, logging mileage that didn't match any mission, fuel receipts that belonged to a ghost run. I didn't need proof of the affair. I needed proof that could ruin him professionally. Adultery might stain a reputation, but in our world, misconduct in the field ends careers. When I got home on a brief leave, Everley greeted me like nothing had changed. Bright smile, quick kiss, that easy warmth she'd perfected for teachers' lounges and family dinners. "You look tired," she said, looping her arms around my waist. "My soldier." I kissed her back, just enough to keep the mask in place. Missing someone and trusting someone are not the same thing. Over dinner, she told me stories about dodgeball tournaments and coworkers who'd been too dramatic over minor things. She didn't mention Mercer's apartment. She didn't mention Ariana. Later, when she went to shower, her phone buzzed on the counter. I don't snoop, not out of principle but because I don't have to. The preview was enough. Doors unlocked. Same as last time. The contact saved under just one letter, C. I poured the rest of my coffee down the drain and watched it swirl away. That's all Mercer was, a dark swirl in an otherwise clear cup. And I was about to filter him out completely. Kobe texted, tomorrow. 0900. Bring your steady hands. He didn't need to remind me. I've been steady my entire life. But this time, the mission wasn't about delivering supplies to the front line. This one was about burning the enemy out from the inside, and making sure they never came back. She told me like it was a gift. We were in the kitchen, her in workout leggings and a faded hoodie from our first vacation together, me still in uniform because I hadn't changed yet. She set down a mug of tea, took a breath that looked rehearsed, and smiled like the cameras were rolling. Adrian, she said, I have news. I prefer intel, I said, sipping my coffee. But go ahead. I'm pregnant, she said, eyes locked on mine, waiting for my expression to bloom into whatever picture she had in her head. Time is a compass. 2 months is 60 days. I'd been deployed for 62. I didn't blink. When? 9 weeks, maybe more, she said. Her voice trembled, not from emotion but from the effort of keeping it light. The air tasted metallic. My heart rate didn't spike, it slowed. The way it does when you're staring down the barrel of something you can't shoot your way out of. Congratulations, I said evenly, then stepped forward and hugged her. My arms have held men with shrapnel in their chests, teenagers shaking in the dirt, and brothers who didn't make it to the medevac in time. I can hold anything for 10 seconds and make it look easy. That night, while she slept in the guest room, her choice not mine, I opened my command laptop and wrote out a list. In war we call it an operations order. At home I called it what it was. Objectives: confirm paternity. Gather actionable evidence against Captain Christopher Mercer. Protect Ariana from further fallout. Keep Kobe in the loop for operational support. Avoid confrontation until the moment of maximum impact. Constraints: no breach of military code in collecting intel. No action that could be spun as personal vendetta over professional misconduct. Preserve public image until final strike. Execution timeline. Initiate paternity test. Continue surveillance on Mercer's duty logs and personal movements. Collect civilian corroboration through Ariana's network. Time exposure for maximum career and social destruction. The paternity test conversation happened 2 mornings later. She resisted instantly. Do you not trust me? I trust DNA, I said. It doesn't get drunk. She tried the offended wife act, but her voice cracked on the 3rd sentence. She knew I knew. And that was the beginning of the end for her. That afternoon, Kobe and I met at a roadside diner off base. He slid a manila folder across the table like it contained launch codes. Inside, stills of Mercer loading government fuel cans into the trunk of his personal car, mileage logs that didn't match mission reports, a convoy route emailed to a civilian address, Everley's stripped of its masking by Kobe's quiet expertise. The last page was a still from the security camera outside Mercer's building. Everley head down using a key to enter. Enough to hit him now, Kobe said. Or enough to let him hang himself further if we wait. I closed the folder. We wait. Men like him think the tunnel leads to freedom. They never notice it's a pit. Kobe smirked, the kind of smirk soldiers get when they smell blood without seeing it yet. And when he falls in? Then, I said, we bury it. Ariana asked me to meet her at the preschool after hours. The place smelled like crayons, carpet cleaner, and the faint sweetness of juice boxes that had been in tiny hands all day. She'd already stacked the miniature chairs, wiped down the tables, and dimmed the fluorescent lights so the room felt softer. Less like work, more like a confession booth. She set one of the kid-sized chairs in front of me. Sit, she said with a half smile. Humor me. I sat, knees awkwardly high, and waited. I should have told you sooner, she began, fingers twisting a friendship bracelet one of her students had made. About Everley and Chris before. I thought if I kept it to myself you'd be spared. That was a mistake. You were protecting me in your way, I said. That's not a crime. That's loyalty. She gave a small, humorless laugh. You always talk like that, like we're in a briefing. It's reassuring and infuriating at the same time. Her eyes dropped to the floor. When I found out she was going into his apartment again, I froze. Part of me thought maybe you already knew. Part of me thought if I told you, it would be like admitting I never got over what happened to me. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the tiny desk. Ari, this isn't just about you or me. This is about a man in my chain of command who thinks he can have whatever he wants and a wife who's convinced loyalty is optional. They chose the battlefield. I'm just bringing the artillery. That's when she straightened. Then use me. I raised an eyebrow. Careful what you're offering. I mean it, she said, her voice sharpening. I've been quiet long enough. She's still teaching at that school like she's the golden girl. All those PTA parents adore her. If they knew what she really was doing, she let the implication hang in the air. You'd take the shot? I asked. Her jaw set. For every woman who got replaced and blamed for it. For every soldier who came home to find a stranger in their bed. Yes. I nodded slowly. Then we coordinate. You'll handle the social flank. Kobe and I will handle the military flank. Same mission, two fronts. She smiled then, not the happy kind, but the steel-edged kind I'd seen before in soldiers who'd been underestimated one too many times. I want her to feel it, Adrian. Not just lose you. Lose everything she thought she could keep. You'll get your wish, I said. As I left the preschool, she called after me, when you're done, I want details. You'll get those too, I replied without turning around. That night, Everley was buzzing about her baby shower plans, talking themes, guest lists, colors. She scrolled Pinterest on the couch, showing me balloons and cake designs as if we were still a team. I pretended to listen, nodding at intervals. But in my head, I was marking the calendar, circling the date in red. That shower wasn't going to be a celebration. It was going to be the first live strike. Kobe calls it the soft kill. You don't rush the shot. You make the target walk into it. Mercer was doing exactly that. Kobe and I met in his office after hours, the blinds drawn, the room lit only by the desk lamp. On the wall behind him hung a map of the base's motor pool and supply routes, something most officers would see as routine. To us, it was a battlefield diagram. He tapped the map with a pen. 2 vehicles requisitioned under a false training evaluation, returned with mileage that makes no sense unless he took the scenic route to another woman's bed. Motor pool logs confirm. Cameras confirm. I flipped through the printed stills. Mercer in a plain tee loading government fuel cans into the trunk of his personal car. Another with him at the closed maintenance depot, keys in hand like he owned the place. Every time he pulls a stunt like this, Kobe said, we let him think he's getting away with it. And every time we document. No shortcuts, no sloppy evidence. When we drop it on him, it'll be airtight. I nodded. Keep feeding it to the IG in pieces. Like breadcrumbs. Kobe smirked. Breadcrumbs with C4 in them. Meanwhile, Ariana was running her own quiet war. She didn't go for the throat, yet. She started with small, concerned conversations at Everley's school. The kind that sounded like she was protecting her rather than tearing her down. I just hope she's not overexerting herself, Ariana told one of the more influential PDA moms over coffee. You know how stressful things can get when home life is complicated? It was the perfect seed. The PDA didn't need details. They'd make up their own, and rumor spreads faster when it's dressed in sympathy. Within a week, Everley's principal pulled her in for a friendly check-in. By the end of that meeting, her sunny teacher reputation had a hairline crack in it. And if there's one thing Ariana understands, it's how to make a crack spread without ever lifting a hammer. Back on my side of the war, I kept my mask in place. I came home on time. I asked about her day. I offered to make dinner. And I made sure every bit of normalcy lulled her deeper into believing I was still in the dark. One night, she suggested a baby moon, some resort getaway before the baby came. I told her she deserved the moon. Then I added, we'll settle for the truth. Her eyes narrowed. Why are you like this? Why don't you want to be a father? I do, I said. To my child. She froze. Her lips parted, then closed again. What did you do? Science, I replied. It's very consistent. That night she didn't sleep. She paced. Every creak of the floorboards was a reminder that she knew the clock was ticking. And the next morning, Mercer was called into the IG's office for a chat. He swaggered in. He didn't swagger out. When Kobe called me later, his tone was almost casual. He's sweating, Adrian. He's trying to plug holes in a ship that's already under. Let him, I said. The real hit's coming. This was just the prelude. The pastel decorations looked like surrender flags. Paper fans, tissue pom-poms, a tower of cupcakes stacked like ammunition. Everley thought she'd be firing. The smell of frosting and floral room spray hit me before I even stepped into the rented event hall. She was in white, a flowing maternity dress that practically screamed innocence. Her hair was curled, her cheeks glowing in a way she probably hoped would make people forget the timeline didn't add up. Friends, coworkers, and family milled around, cooing over onesies and diaper cakes. Ariana was near the back, sipping punch, her eyes scanning the room like she was taking attendance before a mission. Kobe leaned against the far wall, looking completely out of place in a plain polo and slacks, but his stance said observer on duty. When Everley saw me, her smile stretched wider than the aisle in a supermarket. "Adrian. You made it," she called as if my presence were a gift to her instead of a death knell. I crossed the room at a steady pace, gift bag in one hand, a large envelope in the other. Conversations around us dipped in volume as people noticed I hadn't been expected. "You didn't have to bring anything," she gushed, holding out her hands for the gift bag. "This isn't for the table," I said, handing her the envelope first. She hesitated, her fingers brushing mine before she opened it. Out came 2 stapled sheets of paper. The top page read in clean, clinical text. Paternity test result. Exclusion consistent with non-paternity. There was no sound at first. Just a shift in the air, like the whole room had inhaled at once and forgotten how to exhale. Then came the ripple, whispers, muffled gasps, the sharp inhale of a woman in the front row. Someone dropped a spoon, the metal clinking like a gunshot. Everley stared at the paper, her practiced smile collapsing into something raw and ugly. She looked up at me, eyes darting for an exit that didn't exist. "Adrian, we can talk about this." "We can," I said, my voice steady, "but the next page says more than I need to." I reached over, flipped the stapled sheets and read aloud, "Petition for dissolution of marriage. Cause adultery. Named party of interest, Captain Christopher Mercer." Phones were already out. Half the women in the room were recording without shame. A few PDA mothers whispered names to each other, eyes wide. Everley's hands trembled as she tried to push the papers back into the envelope. "Not here," she hissed. "This is exactly where," I said. Ariana stepped forward, her voice carrying in that teacher tone that demands a room's attention. "I tell my preschoolers to tell the truth when they break something. Adults should try the same." Everly's cheeks flushed crimson. She opened her mouth, but Kobe's voice cut through from the back, calm and unhurried. "For those curious, a dishonorable discharge means no pension and no benefits. That might help with your baby registry choices." The laughter wasn't loud, but it was sharp, the kind of sound that cuts deeper than shouting. Everly's breathing quickened. She looked around, searching for a sympathetic face, but all she found were people who'd either heard enough to believe me or were recording for later gossip. I didn't wait for her to recover. I turned on my heel and walked out, the soft click of my shoes on the floorboards echoing louder than her silence. Kobe joined me in the parking lot a minute later, hands in his pockets. First shot landed clean. "Good," I said. "Now we reload." The morning of Mercer's disciplinary hearing was bright and clear, the kind of weather that fools you into thinking the day will be merciful. The building itself was quiet, almost reverent. American flags hung in neat formation along the hall, the walls lined with portraits of men and women who had served with distinction. It was the kind of place where reputations were built, and where they could be buried. Inside the conference room, the panel sat at a long table, their uniforms crisp, faces impassive. Mercer was already there, seated with his assigned counsel, a JAG lawyer whose tight-lipped expression suggested he'd already advised Mercer to settle and had been ignored. When I entered, Mercer looked up and gave me a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. It was the same look I'd seen from arrogant young officers in the field who thought experience could be skipped if you had charm. That smirk had been his weapon for years. Today it was a liability. The proceedings began with the standard recitation of charges. Misuse of government vehicles. Unauthorized removal of fuel and supplies. Breach of operational security by forwarding restricted convoy route data to an unauthorized civilian email. The panel moved methodically, each charge documented with photographic evidence, duty logs and corroborating statements. Kobe had prepared every exhibit like it was an after-action report, clean, irrefutable, damning. Mercer tried to explain away each one. The vehicles? Training exercises off base. The fuel? A mix-up in the supply chain. The convoy route email? Briefing prep for Mrs. Locke so she could understand the stress I was under. That last one earned a ripple of uncomfortable shifting from the panel members. Even they weren't buying it. Finally the chair turned to me. "Colonel Locke, as Captain Mercer's direct superior, do you have a recommendation for disciplinary action?" I looked directly at Mercer. I didn't raise my voice. "I do. I recommend separation with a characterization consistent with the severity of the misconduct. This isn't about personal disputes, it's about integrity in the chain of custody. In our work, stealing fuel isn't just theft. It's the equivalent of misfiring a weapon in combat, it puts lives at risk." The chair leaned forward. "Are you able to make that recommendation impartially, given the personal connections?" Yes, I said. And I would recommend the same for any officer under my command who compromised a mission for personal gain. Mercer's jaw tightened. His lawyer scribbled something on a legal pad, but I didn't bother to look. The damage was already done. The panel excused us while they deliberated. In the hallway, Mercer stepped closer, his voice low and bitter. You think this makes you a man? You think the brass will thank you for this? I kept my eyes on him, calm as ever. I don't need thanks. I need to protect the people who count on me. And you've proven you're not one of them. When we were called back in, the chair read the decision. Separation from service, dishonorable discharge. Loss of rank, benefits, and all associated privileges. Effective immediately. The words landed like a gavel. Mercer's shoulders sagged. That smirk was gone. As we left the room, Kobe fell into step beside me. That's 2 targets hit, he said. 1 more and the whole house comes down. I didn't smile. We're not done until they're standing in the rubble together. Fallout doesn't happen all at once. It comes in waves, quiet, steady, impossible to stop. Everley's wave started the week after the shower. Her principal called her in for what was officially a check-in meeting, but in reality was a damage control session. Parents had been whispering. PTA board members had been concerned about the optics of a married teacher being tied to a scandal involving a deployed officer. And in a school, optics are everything. They said I could resign quietly, she told a friend over the phone one night, her voice muffled through the wall. Or they'd have to terminate me for conduct unbecoming. She took the resignation. Thought it would spare her dignity. It didn't. The PTA gossip mill didn't shut off just because she left the building. It amplified. Parents talked in parking lots, in grocery aisles, in the pickup line. The words affair and paternity kept surfacing, wrapped in just enough faux concern to make it sound like caring instead of tearing down. Mercer's wave was heavier, faster. The dishonorable discharge spread across base like wildfire. Military circles are small and spouses groups are smaller. His name started appearing in group chats as a warning. Don't trust him. Don't hire him. Don't invite him near your unit's families. He lost his apartment within a month, couldn't afford the rent without military pay. He downgraded to a complex with thin walls, where shouting matches with Everley became free entertainment for the neighbors. And the neighbors talked. Everyone always talks. Meanwhile, Ariana's life was expanding while theirs contracted. She signed the lease for a sunlit space with hardwood floors and a fenced patch of dirt she promised would be a garden by spring. I wired her the first tranche of funding for her school's courtyard renovation with a note. For the kids who deserve a safe place to grow. She texted back a photo of herself holding the key, chin high, eyes steady. Feels like closing a door and opening 3 more. Kobe and I met at our usual diner, sliding into our corner booth. He ordered black coffee without looking at the menu. Mercer's been applying for jobs. Nobody's biting. Word's out. Good, I said. Let him feel the weight. And let her feel what it's like to live under it. Kobe smirked. You're cold, Locke. I met his eyes. Cold is what keeps supplies from spoiling before they reach the front lines. Cold is what gets the mission done. Back home, Everley tried to fish for sympathy. Casual texts. Nostalgic photos. Once, a "can we just talk?" message that I left unread. She'd chosen her battlefield and she'd lost. I wasn't about to offer her a truce. Fallout isn't about rage. It's about erosion. And by the look of things they were both down to bare rock. The first morning I woke up without Everley's shadow in my house. The silence felt different. Not heavy. Not empty. Just unoccupied. Like a room cleared after an op. Ready for new equipment, new purpose. Ariana's texts came in early. Photos of her new preschool space mid-renovation. Walls stripped, light flooding through big windows, a small hand-painted sign propped against the door. Future home of Locke Academy. She was smiling in every picture, hair pulled back, sleeves rolled up, specks of paint on her cheeks. I sent her back a thumbs-up emoji and a short line. Mission in progress. She replied instantly, "You mean the school or the revenge?" Both. Meanwhile, my own upgrade started at the JAG office. Naomi Carter, the military attorney who'd guided my divorce paperwork with surgical precision, was a woman who made eye contact like she was cross-examining your soul. When the case was closed, I invited her for coffee under the pretense of thanking her in person. "I don't date clients," she said over her cappuccino. "Good," I replied. "I don't date anyone who'd have to defend me in court." She smiled, small, knowing, like she'd already decided whether or not I'd pass inspection. Our first few conversations weren't about romance. They were about logistics, the kind I cared about. She listened when I talked about restructuring supply routes. She challenged me when I mentioned the unit's family readiness program. She asked questions Everley never had, the kind that made me talk too long and forget to check my watch. The same week, I pitched a resource allocation reform to my CO. A plan to cut unnecessary spending by 11% and divert the savings into family support, on-base childcare, mental health resources, housing stipends. No fanfare. Just numbers that worked. It got approved for a pilot program. Kobe heard about it before I could tell him. He caught me in the motor pool, clapping me on the back. "You get off on spreadsheets, Locke." "I get off on success," I said. "Spreadsheets are just foreplay." He groaned. "Tell Naomi that. See how it plays." I did. She laughed, and kissed me in a parking lot while people pretended not to notice. Meanwhile, Everley's version of an upgrade was a part-time gig at a community fitness center, where parents whispered when she walked by. Mercer was working nights stocking shelves at a warehouse. Both of them were learning that public disgrace doesn't just hit your personal life, it rewrites your resume in permanent ink. And while they sank, my life felt sharper, cleaner, more deliberate. Every step forward wasn't just an improvement. It was a statement. You can burn my house down, but I'll build a fortress in its place. It was late, too late for casual visitors, when the knock came. 3 sharp raps. No hesitation. I opened the door to find Everley standing there, hair disheveled, hoodie zipped halfway, eyes ringed with fatigue. She smelled faintly of cheap wine and rain. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. "You're already on the porch," I said evenly. "So technically yes. But I'm not offering coffee." She stepped inside like someone walking into a museum where all the exhibits are hers but none of them are for sale. Her gaze swept over the framed photos still on the wall. Ariana at her graduation, me and Kobe in our academy days, one of my parents when they were younger. Her eyes lingered on a picture of us at a beach, 3 summers back, my arm around her shoulders. "You didn't take them down," she said softly. "I like reminders," I replied. "They tell me which bridges I burned and which burned me." She turned toward me and for a moment, the Everley I had married flickered there, warmth, charm, that easy smile. But it was just a mask she hadn't realized I could see through now. "I made a mistake," she said, stepping closer. "I was lonely." "Lonely's a feeling," I said. "Betrayal's a decision." Her shoulders hunched slightly but she didn't stop. "He's gone, Adrian. Christopher. He says you ruined his life." "He ruined his life," I said. "I just filed the paperwork." "I don't know what to do," she admitted, the cracks in her voice widening. "I lost my job. People look at me like Like you're exactly what you showed them you were?" I asked, not raising my tone. "Sounds accurate." Her eyes glistened. "I thought you'd yell. I thought you'd be angry." I said. "But yelling's for people who want the other person to understand their pain. I don't care if you understand mine. I care that you live with yours." She flinched. "You were a good husband," she whispered. "I was a husband who did the work," I corrected. "You were a wife who quit the job." She looked at the floor, then back at me. "I wish I could undo it." "You can't," I said. "And even if you could, I wouldn't let you. Because there's no version of my life where you come back without bringing rot with you." Silence stretched between us until she finally turned toward the door. She opened it, hesitated, then stepped out into the dark. When the door closed behind her, I locked it, not because I feared she'd return but because closure is a ritual. And rituals matter. I walked into the kitchen, pulled out a fresh notebook and wrote at the top of a clean page, what I build now. The first line, Ariana's courtyard. The second, unit child care fund. The third, Naomi's favorite coffee stocked at all times. Kobe texted me a photo just then, an oversized pallet of art supplies delivered to Ariana's school, complete with a selfie of the delivery driver sporting a crooked marker mustache. The caption read, "From Uncle Kobe." For the first time in a long time, I laughed without it echoing back at me. "Count what's gone. Don't flinch." A marriage certificate folded in a drawer, now nothing more than scrap paper with fancy ink. A house that used to have 2 toothbrushes in the holder, now holding just one. Mine. Photos where my smile was real, boxed away not because I regret them but because they're no longer part of the map forward. The version of me that thought trust was bulletproof. Those are losses. Permanent and noted. Now count what remains. A sister who no longer carries her betrayal in silence. Ariana, with a courtyard garden under construction, scholarships planned, and a school bearing our family name. A best friend who operates like a co-commander. Kobe, who can dismantle a man's career with nothing more than a pen, a file, and a steady hand. A woman in my life who doesn't ask me to prove my worth with grand gestures. Naomi, who values the work done behind the scenes as much as the victories anyone can see. A career intact, not in spite of what happened but sharpened because of it. And me, still standing. Still deliberate. Still capable of looking at a battlefield, whether it's lined with supply trucks or faces in a crowd, and knowing exactly where to place my pieces. People think revenge is about rage, but rage is loud and sloppy. Revenge is logistics. It's route planning, resource allocation, timing, and patience. It's knowing that if you deliver the right strike at the right time, you don't need to scream, you just watch the results unfold. Some nights, I still see the convoy map in my head, glowing against the dark. I remember the night I kept 8 trucks moving under fire, rerouting them around danger until they reached their destination. What I did to Everley and Mercer was no different. Identify the objective. Secure your assets. Eliminate the threat. Ensure the enemy cannot return. If anyone asked me now, how did you get through it without losing your head? I'd tell them the truth. I didn't survive because I stayed calm. I survived because I stayed calculated. And if they pressed me for advice, I'd give them a promise. The next time someone like Mercer thinks they can plant a knife in my back, I'll already have the map drawn, the convoy moving, and the route ending somewhere they never see coming. Because in the end, I am what I've always been, a logistics officer. And I know exactly where things belong.